Hey, Bahama Mamas and Bahama Papas. This is Bahama Bob welcoming you to the show.
Are you here? Oh, you must be busy being here. Well, thank you for joining us right here, right now, on the Paul Leslie Hour. We've got an interview with Bahama Bob today. It's just been waiting to come out. It originally broadcast on the radio back in 2007, but the interview itself was recorded in a very nice hotel in Atlanta, Georgia. That's in the USA. Bahama Bob, you may be asking? Well, some of you already knew. When your host, Paul, became fully aware of Bob, his first thought was, he seems like a real baller. Oh, good word to look up in the dictionary, baller. This man, Bahama Bob, splits his time between living in the US of A and the Bahamas. He's a boater. He's an operator of a Bahamian resort, and is he a Jimmy Buffett fan too? So he's got all that going for him, which is nice, you know. This is a man who has taken life by the teeth, and he's worked hard, but he maximizes his fun. Bahama Bob is going to share with you some of his philosophies in life, which include kissing frogs, in the metaphorical sense. He's a man who truly has the island spirit. Before we begin the interview, I'd like once more to invite you to please help us out by subscribing to Paul Leslie's YouTube channel. We're trying to get 3,800 subscribers by mid-October. We just had a big boost, and we thank you for that. Subscribing? Oh, it's easy, fun, and free. Now, with that little announcement out of the way, let's get the Bahama Bob interview out there into the world. Oh, yeah. And hi, Dave.
Today we're talking with the one and only Bahama Bob. So first of all, thank you for a hell of a night last night, and thanks for making the time to be our special guest.
You're very welcome.
So, for starters, I was wondering, where are you from originally?
Born and raised in the greater Milwaukee, Wisconsin area.
And how did you come to have the moniker of Bahama Bob?
Well, it goes back about 12 or 15 years that I was involved in a resort in the Bahamas. And it was set up as a timeshare, and one of the owners asked me to take his daughter out on the town because it was her birthday in Nassau, Bahamas. And that particular night, we ended up with 14 of us partying in the city, and we didn't get back to the resort till the early hours of the late morning. And one of the people were standing there and said, "Oh, here comes Bahama Bob and his entourage." And one of them, who is now one of my best friends, his name is Chris, is into computers and whatever. And within about 4 or 5 days after I returned back to Milwaukee, he sent me a logo, which he said, "Let's call you Bahama Bob and we'll start something." And that's how it all started. The rest is history, I guess.
Well, what brought you to the Bahamas initially?
At the time, I really enjoyed scuba diving. And at the time with my girlfriend, we went down to the Bahamas scuba diving, and happened to be walking along the sidewalk, and we noticed that people were selling out of a little trailer. They were selling timeshares, so we ended up buying a week of timeshare, and that's how we got how we got introduced to the Bahamas on a more regular basis than just going once.
Well, what was it about the Bahamas? Granted, I have never been to the Caribbean. What was it about the Bahamas that allured you?
Well, I think if you listen to anything that Jimmy Buffett has been talking about, singing about, and his whole life, other than being in the Keys and whatever, is the Caribbean is just an experience of a lifetime, because there's 700 islands in the Bahamas. Some of them have pink sand beaches. Others have white sand beaches. The color of the ocean is so incredibly aqua in color that it's just mesmerizing. And the people in the Bahamas are so kind and so nice, and it's just a fun place to be.
When it comes to your life, one thing that you told me when we first started communicating with each other is sometimes you have to kiss a lot of frogs. And I was wondering how you came to obtain that credo.
I read a book one time, and the book had to do with setting up your life monetarily and trying to be a success in your life. And it said about kissing frogs. And I picked up on that. And then as I've been nurturing in my life, I've noticed that you do have to go after a lot of opportunities in order to have one opportunity turn into something very successful. So I myself am in the process of writing a book called Kiss the Frogs. It's the name of my boat in Milwaukee. It's called Kiss the Frogs. And kissing a frog, again, is an opportunity. The more frogs you kiss, the more opportunities you go after, the more chance there is to creating a success in your life. And that's what I've done. I've kissed a gazillion frogs, and I have the best. I think I've got, next to Jimmy Buffett and others, I've got one of the best lives in the world.
So when it comes to the other side, like, of course, you have to have the business side to make it in the world. What about the fun side? Tell me about, like, your ideal day.
An ideal day for me is typically, I live west of the city of Milwaukee, but I also have a condo downtown in the city. And an ideal day for me is getting up, having a friend's call that in particular don't work or have off for the day or whatever, and calling. We get on my boat and we take it for a ride. We can go down to various cities with less than 30 minutes in Lake Michigan. We can go down to Racine, Wisconsin, or up to Port Washington, Wisconsin, and they've got little eateries and bars and whatever along the canals, and we stop there for lunch, dinner, meet friends. I know everybody everywhere, so it doesn't take me long to start a little party once we get there, and all of a sudden the whole day is shot.
You were mentioning Jimmy Buffett earlier, so I was wondering, what kind of music do you listen to?
Well, if you listen to my stereo, whether it's in my car or in my condo or my home or whatever, it's probably 95% Jimmy Buffett, but I do like the other singers. Celine Dion is great, and Neil Diamond and the older version of the music. But primarily, I like the island music. Just like when I go to the Bahamas all the time, I just love the steel drums and the upbeat tone of the Bahamian music.
So, do you have a favorite Buffett song?
Oh gosh, there's so many songs that I like of Jimmy's that I don't know.
Don't know. Well, I certainly understand. He has a wealth of songs. I was just wondering, when out of all the people you've met, and granted, being someone that travels around a lot, spends a lot of time in the Caribbean, has there been any person in particular that you've met that out above all the others really stood out in your mind?
Well, it was probably everyone in their life has a mentor, and of course, I'm older than most people, but most young people, and my mentor is no longer with us, but he was an older gentleman that was an attorney, and he owned besides that, he owned a ski area in Wisconsin, and his name was Ed Hurdy, and we used to call him Grandpa. But he was probably the most influential person in my life to give me a start and show me that I could do whatever I wanted to do, and all I had to do is put my head in the right direction and just start pedaling, and I would get to my destination. And that's probably the number one person.
So, what do you think the best thing about being Bahama Bob is?
Well, I never thought it would get to where it is, but the wonderful, I mean, wonderful group of people and friends that I have literally all over the world. And I had my annual Bahama Bob party in Milwaukee last Friday night, and I had people come from Mexico and Canada and the Caribbean, and playmates that came in from Playboy just to be at my party. And if you want something that's really heartwarming, it's to see all these wonderful people having a great time. And the best part of any time, whether I go out with a woman or whatever, or have the party, is to have, when they say goodbye to me, they say, we had a great time, let's do it again. And that's all I need to keep me going.
What advice could you give to someone that wants to live life to their fullest and wants to enjoy life as much as they can?
Well, it has to do with planning. It takes money to do anything you want to do, but it takes planning, it takes perseverance, and just plain intestinal fortitude, guts, if you want to call it, and set yourself a goal. Constantly check the goal, have long-term goals, short-term goals, and constantly check them to make sure you're on the right track. And don't be afraid to do something different. Don't be afraid to experience new things. I'm 60 years old, and at my age, I'm still experiencing new things. And I love hanging around with young people. They're crazy like I am, but they have so many neat ideas about changing things and making things better. And I learn from them as well as they probably learn from me.
I've seen on your website there's a lot of pictures of you traveling around, going to different concerts. I was just wondering, how did you discover the music of Jimmy Buffett?
It was ironic. When I was in the Bahamas, and I ended up, the resort that I bought the week of timeshare, and I own the management company and the bar and restaurant and other things, and lots of weeks of timeshare. But I was invited by the owners of Atlantis to a concert, or a show, if you will, that Jimmy Buffett was putting on, called Don't Stop the Carnival. And Don't Stop the Carnival actually was I think a best-selling book. It's a story about a man from the metropolitan area that purchased a resort in the Caribbean, and all the problems and trials and tribulations he had. Well, Jimmy hooked up with a choreographer from California, and they presented a show at Atlantis for the guests of Atlantis, and I happened to be one of the people invited to the original party. And unbeknown to me, I was sitting at the table, and I'm jumping up and down saying, "This is me. I got involved in this resort, and I had all these problems just like Norman Paperman was having." And all of a sudden, this man sticks his hand out and says, "Hi, I'm Jimmy Buffett." And that's how it started. And I loved his music from that day forward. And even some of the people that were playing in his band, one of the band members, the drummer, was the son of the driver from my resort. That his name is Kevin, and all of us became great friends. And of course, Heather Perry, who was with Jimmy for a long time, Heather and I have become great friends also, because she used to live in the Bahamas.
Do you have a favorite member of the Coral Reefer Band?
Well, call it ex-member. Probably Heather is probably my number one friend, and Ralph McDonald. There's nobody in the world that can play the drums like Ralph McDonald, and I've heard a lot of music, and he is just number one for me. I love the man.
Now, granted, anyone that hears your moniker knows that you love the Bahamas, but I was wondering, have there been any other places in your adventures that especially stick out in your mind? A Bahama Bob hotspot.
Bahama Bob hotspot. Well, I love Las Vegas, and I go there 4 or 5 times a year, and I love California, and I ended up, fortunately, in my excursions, getting into the Playboy Mansion a number of times. But probably one of my best trips actually was to Europe, and going into Sweden and Denmark and Poland, and learning about all the Baltic states, and into Russia, which some parts of that great museum in Leningrad, which used to be, it was Leningrad is St. Petersburg, I guess it is. And the culture and things that you could only read in books, and I got to see it in person. That was probably my greatest experience over and above my party atmosphere of the Caribbean.
You mentioned your love of music, your love of travel. Are there any other special interests of yours? I was surprised to find out that you actually have a farm as well.
Well, that's just it happened after my father passed away. My younger brother was just kind of floundering around, so he loved animals. So I ended up buying a farm, putting him on the farm, and we started raising Angus beef, and now we've got a very high quality beef that gets sold, and it helps me do a little. When I throw a party, I don't have to pay for the beef; I get it for free. And cheeseburgers in paradise, of course, always are better when they're made with Angus beef. So, Angus hamburger.
My last question to you, given that this program goes out all over the world, what would you, Mr. Bahama Bob, because I'm not allowed to call you Mr. Schneider, what would you like to say to the world?
Let's all live in peace and harmony. And when the next time you see someone in an elevator, say hello to them. Next time you pass someone on the sidewalk, say hello to them, and you'll be surprised how much it will come back and be beneficial. There's too much distrust. There's too much hatred in the world, and the melting pot of the world is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and it's going to take a lot more energy on everyone's part to be friends and turn the other cheek a lot. But that's basically all I can say. And I've got so many wonderful friends, and I don't know how many are going to listen to this, but thanks to everybody for making my life the best there is.
All right. Well, thank you, Bahama Bob, for your time, and thank you for the smiles.
We thank you and appreciate you dropping in for the Paul Leslie Hour today. You know, you can help the Paul Leslie Hour in our mission to provide independent media content like this by visiting www.thepaulleslie.com/support. We truly thank you. This is your announcer speaking. Performance of The Entertainer intro song and Corina outro song, courtesy of John Primorano. Well, that's it for today. So until next time, be safe and be good.